yet. We might do some periscoping, maybe. I know Toxie, it's a huge thing with us. We usually always stream, but we're already running late as it is, and we wanted to make sure we got this down. So here we are today. And look, we have the beautiful Big Cutie Eve in studio with us.
Hiya.
And we're going to be talking about a couple of things that really hit home with both of these ladies, Toxie and Big Cutie Eve, and that's going to be a big subject today. But the first thing I want to mention is my favorite story of the week, because we haven't been doing like current events at all, because it's all been about Trump and his, pretending to be some other, his publicist or whatever. I don't want to talk about Trump anymore. I just don't want to talk about him anymore. But there was a story this week that came out about a guy who was running for congressman in Virginia. I think his name is Mike Webb. And he did a screenshot and posted up on his Facebook. And the screenshot included a couple of tabs up at the top that were actually porn sites. Now, while a lot of people said, oh, he's so stupid, unbelievable, couple of things. Number one, they weren't gay porn. So, I mean, not that gay porn is a bad thing, but imagine the flack he would have gotten if it would have been gay porn.
Sure.
Right? And
unless he were like an openly gay.
Right.
Politician.
Exactly. And then number two was when a couple of places asked him for his comment on it or whatever. He says, a lot of people told him that I needed to fire my social media guy, but ever since those were that was posted, my Facebook and Twitter likes have gone through the roof.
So it proves that no publicity is bad publicity
and
when it comes to porn.
Right. And you know what? I think probably one of the reasons why Trump is doing so well is because that's probably the average Joe at work, right? They got a couple of tabs open that are open to porn, or at their home computer or whatever. There's always a couple of tabs open to porn. And so that's just like a normal thing. So he's like an average guy. He's the kind of guy you want to hang out at the bar with and have a beer and talk about Lola's amateur thighs or whatever.
Well, I mean, as an amateur pornographer, yes, sure, why not? Like, what's the problem with that? Maybe he was looking at it on his lunch break. What's the big deal? I don't see it.
I don't see any problem with it either.
No, absolutely not. Unless he was
Are those porn tabs you're closing there?
They are.
Whoa.
We already had a moment before where we were going on my computer and I had to click on something. I'm like, no, don't look.
Wasn't there is something to be said, though. It all depends. I guess it all depends when it comes to the porn that you have and where it should be displayed. Like if it's with your friends and stuff and it's like normal everyday porn, they're going to be like cool, kudos, fist bump, whatever. If it's like some kinky stuff, expect to get laughed at maybe, or teased mercilessly,
or really high five,
a Friday night date,
right?
Yeah.
Or that's exactly right.
It can go even better.
It's one of the reasons, and we've talked about this before in the show. It's one of the reasons I have a separate Tumblr porn. Is when and if I ever get a new boyfriend. Whenever we start to have the conversation about sex and what kind of sex do you like, I'm just going to give him the link to my sex Tumblr.
That's pretty
and
smart,
he can
actually.
see what it is that I love.
I love that idea. Oh, wait a minute. Logging in to make sex Tumblr right now. That's brilliant.
Right. So, yeah. But this week, Sierra sent a picture of what was it, like an eraser? A penis-shaped eraser?
Did I miss this? And
Sierra,
if I did, how did
sent
I
us
miss
a picture of a penis.
Oh.
I think it was a
Oh,
toy.
no. Let me tell you about it.
Yes.
Where was I? Somewhere where I shouldn't have opened it.
Yes.
I know better.
Yes.
And I know if it's from Sierra, I should not open it. And I kind of forgot. And I opened it in a very bad place. So, yes.
So it all depends on context. Like if she was sitting in her car at a McDonald's drive-thru, no big deal, right?
Right, but I wasn't. And Deal big.
How many other people saw it when you opened it?
I actually don't know. I quickly there were others around, but I quickly turned and like, all right.
So that was my one big story that I wanted to cover this week. Not a big story, but a story that I thought was very, very cool. So I did get some, you know how on Facebook you get those messages and you don't know whether, most of the time if it's your personal Facebook page, you don't return them. But my new page on Facebook is a actual page instead of a profile. So I get points against me if I don't answer messages.
Oh, right.
You know, because it displays how
Right.
fast you answer
Right,
messages.
right.
You know, always replies or replies within the hour. So I've gotten 2 messages since I've been on that page. So I'm going to give a shout out to Alex, and because we talked for a little while today. But I also learned via the couple of messages that I got that we have fans that are all over the world. Number one was from New Zealand, right? The other one was here in the U.S. And he was 13.
That is, based on the content that you review in the show, that kid should call me when he's like 22. I don't think he should be listening right now.
So as a mature adult female, I don't want kids that young or younger exposed to the kinds of things that we talk about. But on the internets, there's really no way you can stop that from happening, right? Not put it out there is one way of doing it, but we make ourselves known as an adult content and oriented radio show, even though there's no nudity and there's no actual pornography or anything like that. We do talk about adult immature subjects. So I was, of course, wow, you're 13. Not that we can stop you from listening or watching our show. At least I hope you learned something. So I know that going forward, I would probably always have in my head, there are 13-year-olds watching this show.
You're forever tainted.
So let me tell you something about condoms, right? Always have condoms with you. You should be able to buy it. I don't care if it's in New Zealand or anywhere else. I don't think they suppress that kind of stuff. You should always have condoms with you. If you're ever going to get funny with someone, always whip them out. And if you meet a girl and she is carrying her own condoms, I don't care how old she is, that's the kind of girl you want to hang out with, because she's prepared to take care of her own self without having to think about you, and that's what you want. So there's the lesson for today. I'm going to include, it's going to be like the SinCityBounty Kids Hour, or Kids Minute.
Oh, no.
Maybe. Every week, something new, just for anybody who happens upon our show that is under the age of 18.
There you go.
Or you can move on from the show and find a different show that is appropriate for children under 18.
Yeah, but I think we all know that kids are a lot more mature these days, right?
Well, I think they are. I mean, they're just more savvy and they're just exposed to different things. But I don't think that even with this like base knowledge, right? Perhaps you can repeat some terminology. Perhaps you know logistically how things work. You're really not emotionally prepared for any of that at 13, come hell or high water. I mean, that's just it.
I agree. But if you're going to hear about it, hopefully what we say will stick with you. And when you get to the age where you are emotionally equipped to I don't even like to say the word handle it. When you're emotionally equipped to understand it better, it goes click. Oh, that's right. That's what they meant. Those ladies from the SinCityBounty show. So hopefully that's what we can do for you. Oh, no banging. No banging. Okay.
Uh-oh.
So let's talk about the big story that you have, Toxie.
Okay. And just really quick, we were back on and then we lost it again. So for those who were, we had a few in chat kind of waiting for us. So Yeah, we had a story. If there's another one to talk about, while I try and get it up.
I don't have anything. Is there anything else? Is there anything this week that bothered the hell out of you that you want to talk about it?
Goodness. What doesn't bother the hell out of me? I think that's really the better question. No, well, in relation to the story that Kelly is going to bring up, there was a great article that sort of circulated a couple weeks ago on medium.com entitled "Your Fat Friend is Going It Alone."
Right. We just posted that on our Facebook page, by the way.
And I think it's worth a read. Like, if you're out there right now, go click on that article and have a read, because it really resonated with so many fat people that I know, that somehow the onus is, on us to sort of fight the entire world, when really, shouldn't you stand up, you being the average Joe on the street witnessing bad behavior, shouldn't you be the person that stands up and says, I will not stand for this?
But I think in every fight, whenever you have to have a fight, for whatever it is, whether it's the way that you're being treated, or whether it's medical, or whether it's mental, the onus is always on the individual having to go through the fight itself anyway. There are plenty of, nothing against it. And I read part of the article, and it's great. And just the title alone, doing it alone, yes, I can see that. But there are plenty of fat ladies that I know that could give a shit about what other people think or say or do in their presence. And it's just an attitude that they have, of course, that surface. I don't know what they do in the privacy of their own bedroom, if they're breaking down, if they're, depressed or anything like that. But surface-wise, and I want to think that they're honest 100%, even, publicly as well as privately, that it doesn't bother them at all. So.
But does that mean you should still not stand up for injustice?
No.
Because
I'm
it's not
saying
bothering, because I'm able to persevere.
No.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. But what I think what caught me and why I mentioned it is because you said, yes, it is something that you do go through alone. Any ordeal that you have to go through your own. And it's nice to see somebody else say, hey, leave her alone, or hey, you shouldn't be doing that, or hey, what is wrong with you people? But any amount of people along the aisle of, the path that you have to walk, that are in your corner and in support of you, they can't do your battle for you.
Oh, of course not. But if you are battle wounded, it's an awful lot. It's great when somebody can pick you up and prop you up and help you along the way. That's just how it happens.
And that's perfect, but you're still going to have to either get back on the path and deal with the other side of the aisle that's all, fat person, put the fork down or whatever. It's still your battle. These guys can say to them, you shouldn't say that, but all of their talking is not going to do anything. The one guy from your support aisle can go over and punch the guy in the mouth over there. It's not going to change his mind about the way he feels. It's not going to change the way that he's going to he's not going to stop saying those kinds of things just because there's somebody over on the other side that says you shouldn't do that.
Well, I respectfully, completely and utterly disagree with that. I think that some people do not realize what they're doing. Some people, this is bad behavior because they think it's funny, because they're trying to get a rise out of people. And when that doesn't happen, it sometimes makes people think twice. I
won't disagree with that.
Yeah, I just
agree
think
with that.
I think that there's a way to change. You're never going to change everybody's mind, but
I forget about the ones who are ignorant.
Yeah.
And that can be taught, but they are so far and few between.
I don't know that. I think that people in general are empathetic. And I think the problem, particularly with fat people, is you are looking at us as having, some sort of fixable character flaw. Therefore, you feel like you can sort of rip us apart, that we brought this on ourselves by our bad behavior, by our laziness, by our, fill in the blank. So therefore, they think it's okay. You can teach people to be better people. It's how you raise children, and people can change their minds. It's about giving them good examples, and it's about, rallying. Like, I'm not speaking well today, but
I understand what you're, and I'm not completely against. I'm not completely against your stance. I'm just saying that no matter what, it's still your personal battle.
Oh, sure.
No matter what,
Sure.
even if you are able to get people to change their mind over here, you still have to walk the rest of the gauntlet, as it were. The shame is that it is a gauntlet.
Right. Well, that we can.
And if that
we
change,
can agree on.
If that could change, then that could change. I mean, it's happening now with transgender in the bathrooms, and there are so many people that are speaking out against the North Carolina laws and everything. And even the federal government itself is bringing charges or suing the North Carolina government over this law. So, if things can change, then that's wonderful. But it's going to take years for that.
But the process, you're making my point for me. The
Yeah.
process is happening. That
Process
other people are
is-
saying, I
right.
am not transgendered, but this is a human rights issue, and I shall
Yes.
not stand for it. That's what I'm asking for fat people. Exactly that.
And
this
I'm
is
not
a human
right.
rights issue,
And I'm not
I
saying,
shall
but
not
look
stand
at
for it.
the arguments that are happening, even just in our everyday lives on Facebook. I get posts from Sierra all the time about transgender equality. Everybody can use the bathroom. I use the men's bathroom because I don't want to wait in a long line, and there are plenty of people fighting for that. But even in my timeline from people that I actually love, I get posts about, no, men should not be allowed to go into a woman's bathroom at all because my daughter has rights to safety or whatever. And there are just so many people on that side of the aisle that say, no,
Okay.
we're not going to do it.
Your daughter does have rights, but I don't.
How do her
I
rights
mean,
supersede that?
Right. But she has the right to. What am I trying to say here? Your child's safety is your responsibility.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter who's allowed in the bathroom.
Right.
Why is your child going in by themselves? And why?
But we're talking
And why
about
is
the
it only your female child?
Well, we're right. Well, we're talking about the fights. When you have an issue, there are people on both sides, and there's always going to be the people on both sides. One side has to be louder than the other side, grow larger, get louder, or have more force behind their word or behind their words to actually affect change, right? So before anything can change.
I mean, maybe. I just think that reasonable people, there'll always be pockets of reasonable people,
Right.
So I don't know that it's about who is the loudest wins. And I think that,
No, because if it was who's about the loudest wins, well, the loudest here are those who are fighting the good fight against it.
I'm not talking about loudest in volume. I'm talking about
I'm
loudest
saying-
in strength.
Right.
but
But they're those who are protesting it do have numbers, and they do have a lot of very vocal backing. So
I do think that people approach things differently, and it doesn't matter how many people are screaming out in front of a voting booth. It matters what you walk into that booth and vote for.
You're absolutely right.
I'm not a I was in my youth. I was a protest in the street. I marched with the AIDS quilt. I also grew up in a city where that made a difference. I grew up in Washington, D.C., and that's what you did. You got out there and you marched. And at some point I said, my way to convince people is to sort of have a reasonable discussion with them and sit down one-on-one. And that affects change. So it doesn't matter.
You're absolutely right. The one-on-one conversation can affect change.
It's about humanizing people. And the problem is, people break things down into us versus them. It's the same with being fat or gay. It's just different. Anything that's different is somehow threatening to us as a species, and we are prone to fighting against it. And if you can sort of sit down one-on-one with people and humanize this thing and say, no, this is not affecting your way of life. It's not going to change it. This is just another human trying to live their lives. To me, that is the most effective way to change people's minds.
You're absolutely right. And it's a lot about relativity too. If somebody has in their family an extremely fat person that is going through issues or having problems, then the entire family rallies. Usually rallies behind their family member and their friends. So it's all about relativeness.
Yeah, and that situation fosters empathy for now the stranger that's in the street getting yelled at for being a fat person or getting, their picture taken, which is what Kelly's going to talk about. That fosters the empathy that lets you walk up between that person and the camera and say, "Not on my watch. I will not have this."
I'm very cynical when it comes to the public because
I'm
I
sensing
see it
this a little bit.
I see it from the point of view of social media as opposed to relationships. Even though, because in my relationship areas, we're all on the same page. We all are empathetic towards the Kelly who we're talking about. We've all had issues like this before. I've had plenty of kids look at me and go, "Wow, you're really big," and I'm like,
well, a
it's
kid
a
doing
cause to
it.
celebrate.
A kid doing it is much different than an adult doing
It is. No, it is. But it's
because
still...
when a child says to me, and I've had my child's friends, like one very polite little boy. The one time I was driving on a field trip and he's behind me and he's like, he says my name and he's like, "Do you know your hips are really big?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do actually." He's like, "Oh, okay." No big deal. Well, yeah, he stated a fact. He's a child, and I find no offense. I had another one of her friends say to me, cutest little kid. Actually, it's more so the boys who are completely unafraid to make statements. But he said once, my grandma goes to, and it was a fitness place. "Oh, Curves. My grandma goes to Curves. Have you ever considered going there?" And he's like, "I think you'd really like it." And I'm like, that's probably true. He was speaking truth. I'm okay with that. But adults know better.
To me, that's just a little future bastard. I'd be like, "You know what, kid? Shut your mouth."
He wasn't saying "Hey, badass, why don't you go to
Still,
Curves?
that's
Why
sort
don't
of
you
that
go to
well-meaning.
Curves?"
I stopped that
You know-
well-meaning advice in the bud. No, thanks.
that's something that he learned from his
Right.
mom
Exactly.
or dad,
exactly.
Oh,
where it's coming from.
from his grandma, who made him write an apology letter to me.
Oh, good.
Oh yeah,
Good.
he had to give me a face-to-face apology and a written apology.
Did he
for
understand
saying that.
why he had to apologize?
He did, but I don't think. And as he explained, and they explained, he's being raised by his grandparents, but they explained that it was coming from a good place. And I've known the little boy since kindergarten, and he really thought that knowing why his grandmother went, that it might be something that would be beneficial to me. So it really wasn't done with malicious intention.
Right,
But they nipped it in the bud. And
Good.
I just
Good for them.
spit.
I wish I could have caught it.
So, how are we doing over there?
Yeah, it was back on and then back off. So
We'll figure it out.
yeah, we'll get it going.
All right, so your story.
Well, we have a mutual friend, Eve and I.
She's an actual friend. You've met her. and
Yes,
hung out with her.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And she had. It actually happens often to her. This friend, her name is Kelly, and I'll share her post on our Facebook. It's on my Toxie page, but I'll share it on ours as well. But Kelly would be considered a supersized BBW.
She's fat.
She's fat. I think she's very public about her weight. She has.
Doesn't she model? She's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But doesn't
Right.
she do some modeling?
She does.
Right.
Right. And so she's very proud of herself. She's very proud of who she is, and she's very confident in herself. But what tends to actually, she was in an article. It was a bikini article that Eve here was in as well last summer. So it was.
Yeah, Cosmo picked it up online.
It was in Cosmo, and it was beautiful women who are very confident and unafraid to wear bikinis. And so anyway, what happens often is that she is out, and people will feel free to call her names. They'll purposely stop to tell her, hey, you're really fat, and they will take her picture. And it happens all the fucking time.
Right.
All the fucking time. And so
what is her normal reaction to people being that way?
I think it depends from
The level of
there's
maliciousness?
times that there are times that I know it's upsetting There are other times that she has taken their picture and shared it, like this person, felt it was okay to do to me, so here they are. And in this case, there were two individuals who were very blatantly recording her. And she had asked them to stop, and they didn't, and they continued to do it. And she was in the Walmart checkout, and they were in front of the Walmart restroom. And so they didn't stop, and she said to them, "If you don't stop, I'm going to take a picture of you and see how you like it." So they posed like they were taking a selfie. So she did exactly what she said she was going to do. She took a picture of them, she shared it, and she shared it explaining that, she said, even when I asked him to stop, he didn't stop. Even when people were staring and asking him why he was doing this, he didn't stop. He filmed me and took a picture of me so loud and unafraid of how that might make me feel. What if it wasn't me? What if this was someone without confidence or without the love that I have? When I said I was going to take their picture, they posed. This is not a selfie. They knew exactly what they were doing, hence why they were trying to cover their faces. It's disheartening that people would rather ignore or deny what is happening instead of trying to stop it. So she shared this, and it has been shared. Let me see if I can.
It was up to like 3,700 times, I think.
Yeah, it's been quite a lot. So at first, the reaction was, initially it goes to your friends. When you first post on Facebook, the initial reaction is the people who know her.
Right, and I read most of those.
Right, and they're like, this is appalling. Let's share this. People need to be aware. They need to be aware that this is what happens. I can't believe this, you handled this very well. And then it became shared more and more. And so then what started to happen was people started to become malicious. And I'm going to use...
The rhetoric started to change.
It did. And so I'm going to use what I kind of experienced today and what it is, and I know we've talked about it on here before, but some of us belong to this women's group online. And so somebody in there shared it, and I thought, in this particular group is all about like supporting other women, uplifting other women. We also talk about really dirty stuff, so that's why, it's the perfect group for me. But that's the intention behind the group, and it's many of the women in there are plus size, so it's a way that many women have found empowerment to be able to, wear a sleeveless shirt or go out in a swimsuit for the first time, let alone a bikini. You just go out in a swimsuit.
Some of my favorite posts are ladies who are about to go out on a job interview or on a date, and they'll put on a couple of outfits, take pictures of themselves, and ask the community what they think.
Right.
And they'll get, and it's usually very loving and wonderful feedback about just fashion choices, because it's hard for a big girl.
So here's what happened. And what happened here is exactly what happened to her as well, in a very, more open setting. The first thing people started to do was go through her Facebook. And then it was comments like, she's only doing it for attention. Look at her other pictures. She has pictures of herself hula hooping and in a bikini, and she's crying for attention. Someone else said, she's a blogger. Of course she's going to write about it and make it up for attention. Then the other argument was, they're taking a selfie. She's just crying for attention.
So they didn't even bother to read what she had wrote.
No, and they didn't care. It didn't matter what she wrote, because in many people's mind, there was no way to fathom that this actually happens. Therefore, they have to be making it up. And so I actually went in and I said, like, hey guys, I know it happens sometimes, when something goes viral, but I can tell you that I know her personally, and this is true, and this happens, and in caps, all the fucking time. And so, it didn't matter what I said. I received a lot of feedback as far as, they went through and found other pictures, as did others. They found other pictures on her Facebook of her 15-year-old niece and her companion, and said, like, look, these are the same people that were in Walmart.
know.
And
Just like as any sort of reasonable person, like her niece and Christian didn't look anything like those people. So it makes me wonder who these people are that are like, look, other blacks.
Right.
All black people look alike. I mean, that
they'll
is
look
clearly,
alike. They'll
I
look
mean, that was
alike.
clearly
That's what
the
it
kind
was.
of people that were posting that.
Right. And so it continued on from there, even to the point where, I mean, you know, Sierra got in on it and she's like, guys, if we fucking say like this is serious, you know, this is real. Like, this is not made up for any type of attention or publicity or anything. And immediately everybody's going, but look, she once called someone chubby, and how can you don't put out grease fires with grease. And I said, well, she's using chubby as a descriptive word. Somebody was taking a picture. The comment was, you know, something about, I thought I had seen like skinny people are shaming you. And she's like, no, actually, she was chubby.
This all comes to the whole glass house throw stones kind of thing.
So it was very much that, that she, because in one post, like a month and a half ago, because she said somebody was chubby, and she's very open in saying, you know, she's fat. But because she said someone was chubby, that completely discredited this horrific event that happened to her. So bottom line, people really suck. Like, I don't.
And this is why we get cynical.
This is why. And what I had even explained, I mean, I myself have had it happen multiple times. 3 that I was completely aware of. The very last time I was in Fuddruckers, it was when I was still, you know, married with my ex and my daughter, and we're sitting at the table, and a table full of young men were like taking turns sitting and, you know, turning so they could kind of take a selfie with me in the background. They were literally taking turns, and they were looking and laughing. And normally in that moment, what I would have done, had my child not been there, I would have said, let me give you a better angle, and I would have stood up and bent, which I had done on one other occasion. But
it's all about context.
it was in a moment where I was feeling very vulnerable. Absolutely nothing was done. I spent my meal feeling like shit. I got up. I, at one point, went in the bathroom and cried, you know, dried my eyes so my child wouldn't see it, and came out and held my head up high as they still continued to giggle, and I fucking chowed that, you know, Buffalo Wild Wing or Fuddrucker, whatever it was. Actually, it was Buffalo Wild Wing because I had the wrap. But I chowed that fucking thing down, and like, well, they're going to take pictures. They're going to take pictures. So,
which is so weird, because if you're sitting down, because you're not like large,
well,
you know, except for your hips.
Right. And I was sitting the way it's, if you've ever been in there, it's got.
Oh, I see. So they had an angle of.
Right. The middle's open. Like, there's a big screen where you can watch all these sports. And the middle is open, and they're all, you know, individual tables. And then there's booths down this side and down this side. So I was on the end.
I understand.
And so I was very, you know, clear sight, my thighs and hips and ass. I sit pretty high. And then my child was in, and then.
Gotcha.
That was it. So
that's crazy.
It happens, and it sucks.
It happens
has that happened to you at all?
Girl, please. I
love that.
I remember distinctly the first time it happened, and after that, it's all a blur. I actually cannot go to the Strip. I cannot go like down like to Fremont or anything without it happening. It's more the rule than the exception at this point in my life. But the first time it happened, I was in a bar. I was just recently married, and I was in a bar in LA with some friends from New York. And my husband's like, "There's people behind you are taking pictures and videos and photos of you." And I was like stunned, and I didn't know what to do. And I said, "Are you going to do anything about it?" And he's like, "No." I'm like, "Well, then what the hell are you telling me for?"
Right.
Then finally, he has a conversation with them, but it goes on and on. I mean, they keep doing it. So in the end, he confronts them. We're taking a picture of the sign over her head, blah, 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 blah. And it just keeps going. Like, this has disrupted our whole evening. So finally I walk over and I don't look at the guy who's doing it. I look at the girl that's with him. And I said, I understand that he's a dick, but you're really going to fuck this guy tonight? Like, that's what you're going to do? Like, that's your best life?
Nice.
And she was mortified and got up and started leaving the bar, and he's chasing her. And I'm like, I wouldn't do it if I were you. So, I mean, in that instance, it sort of became a ha-ha, but it was really painful. Like, driving on the way home, I was upset with I'm like, why would you even tell me that? Because
so I guess this guy wasn't
like
getting
you're not.
laid either.
I'm like, you're not going to do it. Well, we're divorced now. So, but like, if you're not going to do anything about it, there's no point in this. And then now it's to the point that I warn people. Like, I went to a show on the Strip with an old friend who I hadn't seen in like 10 years, and before we got going, I just say like, hey, here's this thing that's probably going to happen, and like, at this point, it's disruptive. It takes up my valuable time to stop and correct people. If somebody's really blatant about it, sometimes I'm not afraid of the altercation. But, I mean, it just happens all the time. And we perpetrate that culture, like, by all these sort of things that we like and laugh at on Facebook of somebody doing something ridiculous. It's all the same thing. You're policing other people's looks and behavior constantly, so people think that it's okay. And they're actually looking for that shining moment to put something on WorldStar or something on Facebook that's going to give them, a bit of notoriety.
Right. People of Walmart. I mean, that's a huge one. I always, when I bend over in Walmart, I know, like, I listen for the click. And I have looked on the site because I'm like, at some point my ass is going to end up on that site. Like, I am going to be a hot mess one night, running in just to grab some milk or tampons or what have you. And I'm going to bend down for it, and there it is, and it'll end up on that site, and people think it's, it's really hilarious. But
that's the crux of it. That, like,
right.
As a fat person, you can't just exist. Like, I literally cannot go sit and have my lunch on a park bench without being entertainment for, the 100 people that are in the park. Like, you can't run into Walmart and just exist, because somehow that snapshot is your entire life. And it's, look at who this person is, look at what they've done to themselves. People feel justified in, taking you down a peg. It's disgusting.
One of the comments that I started to see, and actually as today has progressed, the comments are getting nastier and nastier. But one that I had seen today is, if you stuff your face like an elephant, then you expect them to, you should expect people to watch you in the circus. So, there's people who are justifying the fact that because she is fat, this is okay. Like, she did it to herself, and
she's made a spectacle of herself,
right,
so might as well enjoy the spectacle.
Like, there's no reason that she should have any peace in going into a Walmart,
So, while I've only had it with kids, so let me ask this question as kind of a devil's advocate. I'm not unsympathetic, but I've never had anybody take pictures of me or anything.
That you're aware of.
That I'm aware of, correct. But I'm usually pretty good about being aware of my surroundings and what's going on, terrorist bombings and all that crap. So, do you think Kelly Kay does a little bit of You're absolutely gorgeous. I know you know that. We were just actually commenting on your eyes and how gorgeous they are. You're one of the most popular members of our crew when it comes to the looks, but you do take a lot of selfies.
I do.
Big Cutie Eve here is also a model. She's very pretty. She doesn't dress shyly. It's not risque.
Actually, when she got out, I'm like, you are so dressed.
Do you think?
I don't often see you with so much clothing.
And I actually know a lot of other ladies who are on the larger scale as well, who haven't experienced it to the extent of people taking pictures or outwardly being, blatantly being stupid. Do you think a lot of it has to do is because you're pretty, or because?
No.
Are you saying because of the way I'm dressed, I'm asking for it? Is that what because that's what I hear.
Well, that's
what I hear.
But if that is the
Apply
mentality,
that logic to any other situation and tell me if it's okay.
No, it's not. I'm not saying that it is okay. I'm saying, do you think that because you're very attractive, because of you don't dress like a mom,
well, for example, myself, I do dress
right.
like a mom.
But
I'm not out in the same thing I'd wear to a club. I'm not in Target, which is where it happened once as well.
Think of fat women as portrayed on TV. They're in the house coat. They're in the apron. they're not wearing navy, with some cleavage. You know what I mean?
Well, I do think
digging the cleavage, by the way.
I know.
So
it's
am I.
because it's button.
I actually
No, leave it undone.
to have cleavage today.
I see it. It's lovely. And
I'm
thank
gonna be
you.
thinking about
And
that later.
Thank you for all the viewers out there. I think there's two sides to that. One, it doesn't matter what you wear. I mean, I can be wearing my winter coat. I went to New York last winter.
Okay.
I was just walking around the garment district in a coat and boots and blah blah blah. I mean, I'm dressed and coming from Las Vegas. It was shocking how many layers I had on, and it didn't stop people from taking pictures of me or commenting.
Then do you think it's because you're so pretty? Now on occasion I have gotten, "You're so pretty. If only you would lose some weight."
Oh sure. Hey, Mom.
And those are usually from friends or people who are like
They are
acquaintances or
They
something.
are. I had it once from a coworker. He was a coworker I was actually pretty close with, and he turned to me one day in the office and he's like, "God," he's like, "you'd be really hot if you lost weight."
Well,
like,
it's this idea, like, could you
dude,
just be
fuck
my
you.
standard, and I'm uncomfortable with the fact that I'm attracted to you. Here I am sort of feeling
Right.
these feelings, but you don't fit the aesthetic of what should make my dick hard. So maybe you could change because I'm the most important thing happening here.
I love that. Say that again, freestanding. I'm going to clip it out.
I don't know what I just said, but I really don't. But I mean, that's what it is. It's a sense of entitlement, right? That I'm here for your pleasure. It's a male gaze, right? I'm here for your pleasure, so I should do the following things. And I think other women sort of fall into that category. They're like, you could be this, you could be desirable, you could be beautiful if only. Well, fuck your if only. Like, this is who I am, and like, I don't owe anybody anything. I don't owe you pretty. I don't owe you any fucking thing. All I want to do is exist.
Right.
And
Just
the larger,
let me get my tampons in
Right.
Walmart.
And the larger your body is, somehow, like, it's just exhausting to do. And I think about it sometimes, like, I go to Costco, right? And I know, okay, I buy 3 chickens all the time because I shred the chicken and I, like, use it all week, and there's, like, make it, and I put some in the freezer.
Right.
But
just
every
gonna say
time
you
I put
freeze
3
some, too.
chickens on the conveyor belt, I know that everybody around me is like, well, there's dinner, fatty, and I'm like,
One's
well,
for the ride home.
and maybe some days all 3 are now, like, and what would it matter? Why
Right.
does it matter to you what I'm doing with my fucking 3 chickens from Costco? And I'm going to continue I'm going tomorrow. So if you're ready to shame me, Henderson tomorrow, roughly noon, I'll be buying 3 chickens.
Ooh, she's going to have some attitude.
Yeah, and I've got no apologies for that. So it's just complicated. But I do think sometimes that I often get this look that first the read on people's faces is attractive. And then they're disgusted by the thought that they could find me attractive, and then the venom comes. Like, that's happened more, particularly at bars or something. Like, I'm out and they'll see me across the bar and they'll look, and then they're like, I got tricked. Like, how dare you catch my eye?
Like you catfished them for
exactly.
real.
Like, you didn't look down far enough. Yeah, I think there's something to that. And I often feel like people are more vicious the more put together you are, because they somehow feel like, they don't want to like you.
I think so as well, because I see that venom towards more media oriented, whether it's bloggers or social media or entertainers or models. That
like-
vitriol usually goes towards them more than anything else.
Yeah, it's a how dare you. And I often feel like the sentiment behind it is like, I hate myself and I think I'm better than you. Like, how dare you like yourself?
Yeah.
Tess Holiday. I had just seen something today about, I actually wasn't even aware she was pregnant, but people feel that it's okay to tell her about how unhealthy being pregnant and fat is, and that, how disgusting she is for daring to bring a child in while being fat.
Right.
And so apparently that's, really, really heavy on her right now.
That's kind of the culture we have, though, lately. Everybody is willing to tell you if you're pregnant and you happen to have a glass of wine with your dinner while you're out at Applebee's or something like that.
Well, yeah, but
the waiter
that's
has
a different. Mommy shaming is that's bad too. But this is specific because she's fat.
Any kind of shaming. It just happens across the board, I'll admit, I've done it to parents who can't control their children. Mm-hmm. I will child shame, or whatever the hell that's called. Or tell a parent, you really should take care of your kid because something's going to happen and you're not going to like it.
What I try to think of, though, in every situation is everything is just a snapshot of somebody's life. It's not the whole film, right? So like you do not know what that kid or what that parent has been through today. You do not know why that is happening. Do I want to be sitting next to them on a plane? No, but it's just a snapshot. I don't think that's their entire life. So you always have to try to be empathetic when something like that is going on.
You're absolutely right. You should always try to be on a personal level. I'm like that all the time. You can't know a man's life unless you walked a mile in his shoes, right? But not the whole world is like that. And it's going to take a lot for us to change that. There's my cynicism again. It takes a lot for that to change. I think the new generation that's being raised now might be the ones to usher in an era where you're not going to have that anymore, because it's usually older people who's acting that way. It's usually people my age that act that way, and maybe just slightly less younger than me. But these teenagers coming up, they're like open and everything's okay with them.
I think there's a little bit of a change, and especially within that age. And just to use as an example, to kind of go back to my own daughter, she's in middle school. Middle school sucks. Middle school's like the worst. I still have very traumatic memories of middle school. And I know, don't bring them up. No,
don't we all? That's what I said. I was
right.
just with you. I was with you.
And so, my daughter's pretty well into middle school, and she is not a tiny girl. Not only is she very tall, and not only is she built like a brick wall, but she's a heavier girl. And so, I've asked her many times. I was really kind of afraid that in middle school, people would be cruel, and it was something that worried me, something that prompted me to keep her in private school longer than I probably should
afford.
have, or probably longer than I should have. And I did it for that reason, because I was scared. I didn't want her to go through, and she's always had such a bright light in her eyes, and I didn't want other people to come in and dull that. And so I asked her, does anybody say anything to you? Has anybody ever? And she's like, no, absolutely not. I mean, one day she said, we were talking about it, and I said, have you ever been bullied? And she's like, do you think I would be? And I'm like, no, not at all. I was just wondering,
but there is something to be said for size at that age. Like, I'm always, like, so in love with your daughter, because like she reminds me of me at that age a little bit. Like I was much bigger, but I was super tall and I was relatively athletic, and it's sort of a different like I saw other kids get bullied for various reasons, for being fat, for being whatever, but I just didn't get it as bad. I think because there was genuine fear in their hearts, that like,
right. But I've noticed, I've been at her school a lot the past 2 weeks, and I've noticed that there are a lot of other girls who are, built similarly to my daughter that are just equally as like in the mix, nobody over to the side kind of, I wish people would talk to me or nothing like that. Like they're just really, kind of into it. And there was a whole nother thing that, I've I think discussed maybe with you the other night, but it was amazing that this, one of her classmates in 7th grade came out just last week.
Wow.
And he was so embraced that we were sitting there at a table, and these 2 5th grade boys come up and they go, hey, he doesn't believe me that you're gay. Can you tell him that you're gay? And so he's like, yeah. And the other little boy who didn't believe him, he looks at him and he's like, can I shake your hand? And so he's like, yeah, sure. He shakes his hand and he's like, that's really cool. I've just never met anyone who was gay before.
Oh, God, it just broke
and
my
so
heart.
it was very, it wasn't like it was when I was in middle school.
Accepting, right?
I definitely think
but
that.
Look who's raising that generation of kid. Parents like you, right? Parents like you. And you're a little about 10 years younger than me, probably. And so
it depends on
I'm
the
in
age
that
I
gap.
tell people and
right.
the real
So I'm
age.
kind of still in that gap. I'm also very empathetic, and not that I have any kids because I don't like kids. I would probably raise them that way. My niece and nephew get those lectures all the time about acceptance and stuff. But that's who's raising them now. Anybody older than us are the ones that you're going to get contentious issues with. Or the kids that those parents raised, the ones that are horrible.
That's, yes.
I say it all the time, and it's a horrible thing to say, but I can't wait for that older generation of racists and any kind of ists to just leave,
Right.
to die off, because
But
they're
you don't-
old, they're
but
fossils.
Even so, you don't, just because they are doesn't mean you have to be. I mean,
No.
I will tell you right now, right here, right now, my father, absolutely racist. Absolutely. But I, don't consider myself to be my father.
Right.
I don't consider my child to be her grandfather.
Right.
I don't feel that just because he was, that's something that we just had to say, well, that's how I was raised, and so I'm going to continue being, an asshole.
Well, something happened.
I love you, Dad, but, you're an asshole.
Is this why I never get invited to the family reunion? It's all clear now.
See, you got it. So, we'll not mention the fact that, the majority of his grandchildren are actually biracial. So, he loves that. But
They probably don't go to the reunion either.
they don't go either. But anyway, it doesn't mean it just because they are.
No, you're right, but there's something must have happened in your life to where you said something in you said, damn, my dad is a racist. I'm definitely not going to be like that.
Or you just don't even, I definitely feel like my grandparents said racist things, against other, but at some point you just look at them, you just realize they're ridiculous.
Right.
It's just
that's what it is.
I just think, I don't even remember a time where I was like, I'm actively choosing to be different from these people.
Yeah.
I just always remember shaking my head you're an idiot. It's just this understanding right from the beginning that this is not the way to think. This is not how people are, and I feel sorry for you. If anything, that was always the emotion.
Or or as in my family doesn't believe they're racist because they're of race.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But they are so racist
Right.
it's not funny. Well, not
Right.
so racist, but they don't even realize that they are racist. Just the subtle things that they
that's
say.
a great point. That we're coming back around to my point of view that a lot of this is about education,
It
right?
is.
And
It
conversations. You don't realize that some of the things that you say are hurtful. And if you've never examined your beliefs, they're just in your head. This is what you believe. You've never had to examine them. You do not even know what you're doing. These people might not even know, these idiots in Walmart taking a picture, don't even understand that what they're doing is bullying and that it's damaging.
Right.
And if they do, then then you can call them assholes. But if they don't, it's worth a conversation. Do you understand how this happens? Do you understand the sort of spiral that this puts someone in? You understand what you're doing. And they might just say, I have never thought of it that way.
Yeah, I saw
and-
the people in those pictures, and I think they knew exactly what they were doing, and they're just assholes.
In my case, just to give an example, the times that, and I recognize it doesn't happen to me near as often, as it does to others. Like I know, for example, Kelly in the case that we're talking about, it happens every time she goes out. I mean, people have keep things on her car where she lives. I believe she's had to move even, if I'm not mistaken.
I think she lives in I don't know.
Or she's about to. But, they've keyed her car. They have purposely pulled up next to her in traffic to shout things to her. Well, that doesn't happen to me. I mean, I've had these, a couple instances. People say something, they give you the side eye. But in these particular cases, I mean, they've been young guys, older teenagers, young, maybe early 20s.
Just
and they're,
$29.
just maybe kind of assholes. And they think it's funny now, which may not be funny then. I mean, I have a brother who, he's now a teacher, but for a long period of time, he was a fucking asshole. And he wouldn't probably hesitate to do anything like this, even though he grew up with, a fat sister, a fat mother. He would have just thought, hey, this is fun. Let's go along with it with my friends.
Maybe we should make it a parenting must that you have to point out all the flaws in your child that can be made fun of, just so they know that it's not good to make fun of other people and their
don't do that.
flaws.
The world will break your children down. You build them up. You build them up. The world is there to
Or,
break
you know
them
what
Just
you
to
do?
teach them a lesson.
You don't teach them those lessons.
Your
Do
forehead is too tall.
No, do
your
not
nose is
shame.
too
Do not
big,
point out you are
your ears
perfect.
are too
You're
wide.
perfect.
We got 5 minutes.
You children out there listening in New Zealand, you are perfect little beings. You're perfect.
Here's the deal. Society
It
will
is.
already tell you what's wrong with you. Your parents don't.
You're
need to.
absolutely no.
I mean,
no,
I'll
no.
have no.
You're
I have no
right.
hesitation if it's a personality thing. I'd have no hesitation saying, don't be a jackass, or you're
if you're
acting like a
correcting bad
complete.
behavior.
Yeah,
different.
here's how it's. You're acting like a brat. That's what's happening now.
Yeah, that's the theory of
But
an
I-
eye for an eye kind of thing, right? or don't throw stones if you live in a glass house kind of thing. So, hey, we're SinCityBounty, guest starring Big Cutie Eve.
Give us your details here. Give us your info.
I'm 6 feet tall. Not that info.
She's going to be at Costco in Henderson tomorrow.
That's the stuff I have on.
Meet me at Costco.
That's the stuff I have on my Big Cutie
Buy
Eve
me
trading
3
cards.
chickens. If you would like to see more of me, and I mean a lot more.
No, you got to look right at the camera
sorry.
when you do that.
Hey, if you'd like to see more of me, a lot more, you can find me at eve.bigcuties.com. I take my pants off an awful lot there, and it'll make you smile.
We'll make sure we post a link up on our Facebook page for that. So we've been talking about a lot of stuff today, but one of the big things is be careful or think before you speak. Think before you whip out your camera. Think before you
whip out
I was going in a different direction.
Right? Right?
Because we're so pervy.
While it might be funny to you, you're actually dealing with other people when you're doing. You're dealing with real, actual people,
Right, who have the same right to life that you have, regardless of who they are, what they look like, and what their situation is.
And if anything, I'm a huge fan of doing this, and sometimes I know I come off as maybe gay when I do, but when I see someone who is gorgeous, I will go up and say, "Oh my God, you are so pretty." I think people are beautiful just the way they are, males and females. And I always usually have to give the caveat: I'm not gay. I'm not trying to hit on you. You know,
I
don't want to get your
caveat.
pants.
I'm like,
But
you want to
I
give me
think
your
you're
digits,
beautiful.
lady? It's all right.
Although some people would say that is, judging people on their looks only. But I love hearing that I'm beautiful.
But I often do, I'll do that, but I do like to tell people, like, if they're wearing shoes that I think are really cool, or,
Oh, yeah.
I like their outfit, their purse
Or their
is awesome,
top
their
is
hair,
perfect.
yeah.
Right.
I mean, I do like to share that with absolute perfect
Focus
strangers.
focus on positive things instead of negative things. I think that's a really good life lesson.
Yep, I
You
totally
know?
agreed.
Especially when you're out there in the public, because I think you would like it if someone came up and commented, complimented your cheeks that day, or your hair, or your coat.
I love your cheeks, Toxie. I do.
I love her eyeballs. I want to take them home, put them on a shelf. No, I'm just kidding.
You can rub my cheeks later.
SinCityBounty.com. Our website has changed a little bit. Go check it out. You can subscribe to get our videos. You can subscribe to get our audio. We'll have galleries up probably in this next week. Follow us on Facebook or Twitter or Google+. We'll get an Instagram if one of these girls want to man it. We'll see you next week. We love you. Bye.
Bye.